police. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. No justice, no peace.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone. This is Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's Word Wednesday. We want to welcome everyone. We want to give you a few moments to hit like. I want to give you a few moments to share. We want to give you a few moments to create a watch party for our powerful justice topic that we're going to have on this evening. So take a few moments to invite others to join us. Take a few moments to hit like. Take a few moments to create watch parties. Once again, this is Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's Word Wednesday service. You know, we've been doing justice panels for about 4 weeks now. We've had a powerful time, and we want to make sure that you're able to join us for our topic on tonight. I believe we're going to talk about some things that you would want to hear. And so take a few moments to once again hit like, take a few moments to hit share, and we want you all to create a watch party. Now, we're going to have our panel come on in just a moment, but I want you to make sure that while you are hitting like, you go and like Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's Facebook page. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Empower Cathedral. Follow us on Twitter at Empower Cathedral. We are now on YouTube. We want you to follow us on YouTube as well at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. And as always, if you need any information, make sure that you find us at empowermentliberationcathedral.org. Empowermentliberationcathedral.org. Now, I think it's important that we always talk about those things that matter the most in our community. And so tonight we want to talk about racism in the church. Who would have thought that racism would show up in the church? All right, if the church is a place that is loving, church is a place that is for healing, if the church is supposed to be a place where God's Spirit dwells, who would have thought that racism would show up there? And so tonight, we're going to talk about racism in the church. But again, I want to give you a few moments. We're only at 7:02, and so I want to give you another minute to share on your pages. I want to give you another minute to hit like and create a watch party. I believe this is what you want to hear on tonight. I believe you should invite all of your friends, everybody connected to you, to tune in with us on tonight. Once again, this is Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. This is our Word Wednesday time. We will be talking about racism in the church on tonight. All right, so tonight we have a great panel for you. As I say, we always like to use our Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's leadership to be on the panel. We know that they have lots of wonderful things to say, lots of great thoughts and lots of ideas and a lot to contribute to the conversation. And so we want to bring them in at this time. And also we have a special guest with us. We have none other than the Reverend Candy Holmes with us. Somebody shout where you are. All right. And so Reverend Candy Holmes is an ordained minister with the Metropolitan Community Churches. She's also retired from the federal government. Isn't it wonderful to be able to retire? She's a minister of healing, and she works with the Metropolitan Community Churches, people of African descent. And so welcome to Reverend Candy Holmes. Now, I've done some thinking about this topic, and I want to engage us on this because one of the things that came to me first is that if we subscribe to the thinking that we are the church, all right, and we know we were taught that, as I guess younger people, if we just subscribe to the thinking that we are the church And then I believe that if we are the church, then whatever it is that is within us, whatever our belief systems are, then that's going to be in the church. All right. And so if we have racist thoughts and racist ideas, and if we are prejudiced in any way, then that is in the church. And so, in essence, racism from many years ago during Jim Crow, before civil rights and all of that, if it never left the hearts and minds of the people, then it never left the church. All right. And so, then once we bring all the little churches together into the large church building and the institution that we know as a church, then how can we expect anything differently? All right. So that's my opening statement. We're going to open with that. And I'm going to ask y'all about what you think about that. If we are the church and if we're racist and if we're prejudiced, then how can we expect racism not to be in the church? Anybody? All right, well, we're going to start with Reverend Candy, then we'll work our way around.
All right. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Bishop, and glad to be on this panel with my other friends. And hello to the audience. So, your question about racism and racism in the church. Well, I agree with you that there is racism and prejudice in the church, and that we do bring who we are and what we have inside of us into the church. And if we don't address those things ahead, if we're not looking internally, then we will behave with what we have inside of us. And oftentimes we're not even aware. We have blinders on, and we're not aware, we're not conscious of our behaviors until something happens. And then when something happens, something it might be brought to our attention that we said something that was biased or prejudiced. Some of us are not willing and open to own that, because how could I be prejudiced? Especially if I'm an African American person, how can I be prejudiced? If you're a white person, how can I be racist? I didn't grow up, thinking, I wasn't trained that way. But the reality is that our entire environment, our atmosphere, however, even if you didn't grow up with certain things directly said to you, we're all in the same soup. Whether you're African American, whether you're a Latino, whether you're a white person, whether you are an indigenous person, we're all in this soup together. And depending on your background, depending on the legacy of your family, certain things just came along into your family lineage, just by understanding. And then some things are taught.
Yes.
So depending on where you are and where you come from, that's in you. And until we do some introspection, we won't know what's inside of us. One, and two, we won't know how to deal with other people's bias or prejudice or racism.
Absolutely, absolutely. Minister Cat, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it exists. I mean, look at America today. You know, um, I think we'll be foolish to believe that it doesn't. I just think that people hide it better, you know, um, and they are able to, dress it up or whatever you say. Just like, when it comes to LGBT, when it comes to different people, different opinion, people dress it up for the moment. And when they have that opportunity, they go for it. I just think that you know it, you can't run from it. It's not in different areas. Some people are racist of other people of the same race. you know um it's there. It's in the church. It's alive and well. It's just some people cover it up better than the next. you know
Okay. I really think that when you talk about Reverend Kennedy addressing things inside of us. Now, when you talk about the church, one of the things that's interesting to me And growing up in the South, we always were dealing with the Ku Klux Klan. And so, as a young person, I always knew these people were people who hated Black people. They were people who were very hateful. They would kill Black people. They would torment Black people, and they did not want you in their areas. And so, if they had an area that they felt was theirs, you had better not be in their area. They didn't want to see you in certain places with them. But it wasn't until I got older that I realized that these people who were so hateful and so nasty and so judgmental and so prejudiced and so racist were people who believed in Jesus Christ, were people who sat in church every Sunday morning, were people who worked and served in the church and called themselves leaders in the church. I really struggle to deal with that because I said that is so oxymoronic. Because if you are hating and killing African American people who are God's creation, how is it that you can sit in the church and say that you are a faithful member of the church, that you love God, that you love Jesus Christ, and that you honor God with your life? And I mean, it really took me for a loop to understand that these people actually felt that they were pleasing God with their life, but you're killing another race of people over here, and you're discriminating and you're showing racism and you're oppressing people. You have your foot on their neck and you treating them like the police treated George, there that day. And so, it really is disturbing to know that. And so, yes, we have to investigate. I think there are not enough people investigating themselves on today. And so, what do you say to the fact that we need to do a better job of assessing ourselves with, I guess, what has been taught, like you said, what is embedded? Like we know we have embedded thoughts, we have embedded theology, embedded culture. What can we do to begin the assessment process and look at ourselves and look at what we are projecting or how we may be hurting somebody else? What can we do? Any thoughts?
Well, Bishop, I don't want to monopolize the
That's
your.
okay. Go
It's
ahead.
okay. It's all right. Okay. Well, I always say you start with yourself, and many Black people believe, African American people believe, people of color believe that it's not possible for us to be prejudiced or biased, um, but we can. We can learn things from our parents, our grandparents. It could just be something visible in our family. It could be language that we just never thought about. And you can go online even to to Google offensive prejudice language, and you will find a list, and I guarantee you will find in that list some things that you say, and just never knew that those were racial or biased or prejudiced words. And so I think we first have to realize that that our language has been taught to us and we've learned it, and so we look at our language, look at how we refer to ourselves, look at how we refer to others. I'll never forget the time that I was caring for my ailing father, and we had a screen door, and he was laying in his bed, and I was sitting beside his bed, and he saw some friends of mine coming towards the door, and he saw them before I did, and he said, "Who are those white crackers? You know, coming up here." And I said, "Daddy, that is so inappropriate. That is a biased, prejudiced statement." He said, "Well, I didn't mean no harm." I said, "But that's not what, those are my friends. Yes, they are white, but the way you refer to them using that term is inappropriate. You should not use it." And so he didn't, but that was my father, and I learned from my father different things. So I had to look at myself. But what other things have I learned? What other languages have I learned from my
That's
family,
good.
from
That's
my
good.
upbringing?
Yes.
Um, and so that you can start there, you know, and then you could go from there. You could look at your own internalized stuff.
Yes.
Um, I used to have a partner who was very dark skinned.
Uh-huh.
And she said to me, she would say to me, you know, I have so many people just tell me that, you know, that I'm beautiful. And I said, yeah, because you are. And she says, but I don't feel that way because my skin is dark. And the way in which some people have talked to her, you know, because she was dark, uh, made her feel a certain way about her own skin
Yeah.
tone,
Yeah.
but also made her feel a certain way about other people's skin tone.
Yes.
And so we have all this colorism going on and within the Black, you know, people of color families and communities. And that's another bias, another prejudice that we grow up with
Yes.
one way or the other, whether you're light skinned or whether you're dark skinned, you know, whatever the case might be, whether you have kinky hair, whether you have straight hair, whatever the case might be. And when the truth of the matter is that we're all beautiful in God's eyes,
Yes.
but those things that are within us, if we don't know that they're there,
Yes.
then we pass it on to others. And so I'm just talking about Black folks and people of color right now, but it also applies to white folks too. They just have a different, they're in the same church, just a different pew.
Absolutely. And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of some of the shows. I love watching Black shows, the older ones. I like the newer ones too, but I like watching the older movies and stuff because they really did, the writers tried to portray what was actually happening. And so oftentimes when white adults were out with their children, the children would slip up when they saw a Black person, say, oh, there's a nigger, you know, they would say something like that. And so, you know, it always stung me when they said that. I'm like, who's letting their kids say that? But that was what they were hearing at home. So that was what was being embedded into them. And so that's what they felt people were until somebody corrected them. And then either they accepted the correction and made the correction, or they continued on and they taught that to their children. And so we do have to look at what is it that we've been taught, what is it that we're receiving, and you know, continuing on. Dick Kim, you want to say anything about that? You know how, you know, sometimes you may not realize it, but it is offensive.
Well, my religious upbringing was a lot different than people I know. So until I reached a certain age, I really didn't know truly about racism, and especially in the church, because when I grew up Catholic, and honestly, back then, Catholic Church, they didn't fellowship a lot, to be honest. There wasn't a lot of fellowship. But then my father, he was a Baptist minister. And once and every now and then, I would be around a different, church setting. And then, I realized how people felt, because I didn't know how Black folks felt about other people, and in the religion and everything. So for me, I didn't necessarily grow up with it, but I would hear it from the other church members about how this church is that, or this church, they don't let you do this, or they don't want you there, or something like that. So
Okay. Okay. Mr. Cat?
And I think, it has a lot to do with your preference as well. And sometimes we speak out loud. A conversation we was having today. I don't know if it was today or at another time, Bishop, and we was talking about, the different type of people that, we are attracted to. And then sometimes the way you say those things, because it's your preference, like what you said about the young lady who was dark skinned. I think dark skin is gorgeous. I love dark skin, you know, women. You know what I'm saying? So I love the complexion or whatever. But if you're saying like your preference out loud to somebody, oh, I would never do this person, or I would never go with this person, I would never be bothered with this person. You understand? That is hating on people. That's a sign of prejudice. And because we are verbally saying it out loud and not realizing that you have some people that's standing around that might get hurt from that or take offense to that. You know, so even sometimes our preference, like you could say, I like collard greens or I don't eat watermelon. You know what I'm saying? Like, who eat watermelon? Somebody else say, everybody eat watermelon, all black people. You know what I'm saying? So we say different things out our mouth that, you know, we don't realize that we're saying that we have to pull back off of, because someone else in that area or in that group may get offended. Like, what do you mean you don't eat watermelon? What do you mean you don't eat fried chicken? We have fried chicken every Sunday. You mean, what's wrong with fried chicken? You understand? So it goes beyond like color and different things. It even goes with your preference and things that you like and don't like. Like a lot of people like when one pastor get up and preach, another one don't. You understand? Oh, he's long-winded. I don't want to be bothered with that. And we got to go through this and go through that. And, you know, so, I mean, you know, it's just what we say out loud. And sometimes it doesn't even have any fire with it. But because the way we say it and the tone and the manner that we say it in, it can put somebody in a bad space, you know?
Yeah, it reminds me of the judge, Amy Barrett, what she said about the LGBT community. She used a term that was not a term that was meant to affirm, in my opinion. She used the term sexual preference, and many people had to thus complain, tweet about it, social media, cause it to trend. And I believe she did make an apology and say that she did not intend to hurt anyone with her statement, but many did not believe that apology because they know her history and know the way she has voted and things that she's said, and they believe that it was intentional. And so, you know, because if you don't believe that this is someone's orientation, you believe that this is a choice, then that is why you'll make the statement preference. But when you look at culture and, you know, society, um, culture, we've oftentimes in society, we've experienced society accepting certain things because of what spiritual leaders do or do not say. And so oftentimes a spiritual leader can drive whether change will come in the community towards something. And so spiritual leaders sometimes in the past have endorsed certain things. We know the spiritual leaders oftentimes are the voices in the ears of those who are making the laws and different things. And so therefore, if they're saying the Bible supports something, and if they're saying the Bible supports blacks being oppressed and blacks being marginalized and disenfranchised, and that they're not fully human, and that the Bible supports blacks being a slave, then those in the community are going to buy into that, and that becomes the norm. And I really believe that that is why it was so widely accepted, because people felt, oh, well, the spiritual leader said that the Bible said this, and so therefore that's how it's supposed to be. And so, you know, that's how certain things happen. And so the church, in my opinion, really needs to raise up. These spiritual leaders need to raise up and cause something different to be said, something different to be released, and then get the buy-in from the body so that we will experience change. So what do you think about the spiritual leaders need to begin to be the catalyst for the change in the mindsets and thinking and hearts of the people?
I think that's spot on, Bishop. Um, the leaders, spiritual leaders, have to do their work.
Absolutely.
Because they
Yes.
don't they can't give what they don't have.
Look, if they don't believe it, nobody else is going to receive what they say.
Right.
Yeah, so yes, they do need to do their work, and who's going to challenge them to do their work? I challenge everybody who is still struggling and wrestling with if a black person is equal to a white person to begin to do that work and let God bring you to the point where you can understand that we all are on the same level and that we all are children created by God, and we were created the same. in God's image. I don't see anywhere where it says God made somebody a little higher. Unless you're not a human being, then you may deal with the levels. But I don't see anywhere where it says that God made whites a little higher than blacks. Am I right, Reverend Candy Holmes? I
That's
don't see
correct.
it anywhere. And so, people have got to get it. But I do want to say that, the spiritual leaders have got to drive this, because if they will begin to drive it, the people who sit in the church are the same people who vote for the people who are in the Senate, in the House, and the local elected officials, and all of those, and federal level. So, we've got to begin to drive this. So I do want to ask, how has racism in the church impacted your relationship with the church, if you've ever experienced that? And when I say church, I do want to say the church as an institution, or how has it impacted your relationship with the general body or bodies? Let me say it that way. How has the racism impacted that?
Would you like for me to speak, Bishop?
Go ahead.
Um, well, I would say that because of racism and white supremacy, um, that me and the church have had a falling out, at least two or three times.
Yes.
I broke up with the church, and yeah, we had a broken
It is
relationship.
a relationship. I was about to say that. Yes.
Hmm. And right, um, and I had to do my own work around healing for myself, but I also had to confront the church,
Yes.
the institution, with their racism and white supremacy, to say this is what is happening to me because of your processes, the way in which you behave, the ways in which you view me, the ways in which you treat me. This is what is called racism, or this is what is called white supremacy. So I had to. So sometimes the institution, more often than not, was not prepared or ready, because the spiritual leaders were not ready to
Yeah.
hear that. And so then, instead of staying and suffering, I would leave, and then be on my own spiritual journey for a while, and then find another institution or church where I could be, more comfortable,
Yes.
to only find it happen again.
Yes.
And so it's an ongoing journey, because you're going to find racism and white supremacy wherever you go. Whether you're in a black
Yes.
church, whether you're in a white church, whether you're in a multicultural church, it's going to be there. You have to decide
Yes.
how do you want to address it. And I think it's important to talk to your spiritual leaders about their views on it.
Yes. And I'm glad that you said it's going to be there, because it is. I've had a few not so kind and happy conversations with folks, because I was not happy about what I felt was racism in a denomination, at a denominational level. And so, when you do that, you come off as the angry black woman, come off as somebody who mad. No, I'm not mad. I'm just calling you on what you said and what you're doing, and how y'all have been acting towards not just me, but other black people that I know. And so when you do that, then they, I guess, put you in a box over here. Okay, this one's mad, about whatever they mad about. No, you need to hear me. I'm trying to help y'all, because, if you don't hear from me, you're going to hear from somebody else eventually. And so we do have to have tough conversations, and we do have to let them know, in what ways are you offending African American people? In what ways, and what are you saying that is not kind to African American people? And how are you limiting African American people in this particular church, in this particular denomination, and on different levels in these ministries? Because when I walk in the door and I don't see nothing but white people, then I say there's a problem, especially if I know some black folks go to some of the churches. And so to me, we have to call it out. But Black people, to me, and I'm just going to be honest, because this is my church, ELC, the church that God has given me. But Black people are so desperate to be accepted in some of these white spaces until they afraid to say anything. And they feel if they do say anything, they feel if they are honest, then they're not going to be able to do certain things in the church. Well, maybe that's not the church for you. If you can't be honest, and if you're already feeling as if you're not being allowed to do certain things and your gifts are not welcomed. And you know, one of the things I heard, I was listening to Dr. James Cone, and no, this was Dr. Tony Evans. I've listened to so many people, but this was Dr. Tony Evans. He talked about there was something I think that he wanted to do or in the community there. And the people said that he was allowed to come, but he was not allowed to be a part of their organization. So they were going to use his gift, but because of your color, you're not welcome to be a part of this group. And so what happened was, I think it was, he was invited to speak somewhere, and they had him to come to the country club, I think it was. And so he came to the country club to speak, but it was a country club where Black folks can't be a part of. So we're going to use your gift and let you come and encourage people, but you too Black, your color is the wrong color to be up in here. So you're not really welcome, but you can stay long enough to say what you got to say, and then you got to go. Now, Black people have been treated that way for years, but at some point, some of us have got to stop going. And at some point, some of us have got to say, maybe this is not the place for me, you know. And so we cannot be so desperate and you know, pressed, as the younger folks say. I know I got Deacon Kim and Minister Cat on that one. We can't be so pressed that we are not willing to speak out, speak our voice, let our voice be heard, because we may be speaking for more than just us. We may be speaking for all the African Americans who are sitting, hurting and wounded in that place. And God may have chosen us to be the voice to speak out and cause change to come. So we cannot be afraid to say anything. Mr. Cat, Deacon Kim.
You know, I think we just have to, I think sometimes, like you said, Bishop, we want to be accepted. You know, some of us, a lot of us want to be accepted in those spaces. So past what the hurt that been inflicted on us. And then when it happens so long, we continue to stay in those spaces because that's where it's comfortable at. But like Minister Kenny Holmes said, that, you know, the church hopping thing, I remember doing that till I got so fed up and I was like, I ain't going back to church no more. You know, y'all do what y'all want to do. I sit home and watch TD Jakes, you know, but I wasn't comfortable there because I know that's not me and how I was raised and how I was brought up. So I tried another church. But like you said, the change has to come within the head. It always starts up and then it trickles down. So when there is a problem that arises in those church spaces, we should feel the need to want to address them, you know, and pull them out, because people are going to continue to keep running in and out, back and forth, in and out, back and forth. So it's not going to go nowhere, just like you said. It's there. It's not going to go nowhere. You're just going to transfer to somewhere else. I'll go to another church after you want to, and then that's going to happen there too. There's always, it's more stuff going on in the church sometimes than outside the church. So that's why many of us stay out so long when we leave and we have that church hurt, or somebody say something to us that is so, you know, downright, you know, prejudice or racist and stuff like that. We just have to address it. And I just think that right now in this time, in this moment where there are really not many churches that are open, these discussions like this on this panel should happen. So when it happens and we open back up and things get to going, we have already started the work, you know, so then some changes can happen within, you know, I need to call like a town hall meeting or something, or a universal meeting. I don't know what it is, and have all, because about 1,000 people get on Zoom and they have all the bishops and pastors and ministers and everybody on, popes and whoever else exists, you know, because I'm saying that at a time like this, racism had reared its ugly head. You understand? It ain't never left. People just know how to cover it up when they want to cover it up, you know. Yeah. And now that it's out here, we need to address it. Let's not let it go back in like a turtle head. You know, when the turtle's ready to just rock and chill, they'll go back in now. When the action come out, the food start coming out, they jump back out again and want to eat up and devour and do all these other things. We need to get it now while the head is out there and everybody's out there swinging their head and, yeah, Trump this, Trump that, black people that. That's so unfair, but it never left. It never left. People just covered it up. They threw a blanket over it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's time to address it. And I just think that something needs to happen, on a panel like this. You always give these panels and, it's really, this is needed. This is like 911 emergency kind of thing. We need to put out a 911 and start dispatching people to these forums and these Zoom groups to talk about this, because this is really serious.
Absolutely.
The church hurt and racism had killed so many people.
Yes. Yes. And you are spot on when you say kill them, because it may not have physically killed them, but it killed their spirit. And they are dead spiritually because of the church, the place that's supposed to revive them and speak life into them and help them to thrive. They're dead because of that. And that should never happen, Deacon Kim, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, things do need to change. But so if you look at how the young people have been out there, marching, protesting, trying to, stand for justice. So this generation and like the Gen Z, in another few years, they will probably be the ones to, make a change. They have been exposed to more of the world than we ever were at their age, just from social media and, the internet. And, because when we were their age, we only knew what we saw in an encyclopedia that was already a couple of years old. We didn't know much like they do now. So I think, they'll be the ones who will help affect this change, because when you go down to certain places, especially down in the South, things are just, it's like time has stood still. And these younger people down there, they're not going to stand for this anymore. So the change will come, but it's just going to take some time,
And I think you're right. Because the young people have been exposed to more. They do appear to be more open. They do appear to rebel against some of the racist ways and the thinking of some of these supremacist persons that are in charge. However, the problem is, and we're seeing this with the Congress, and we're seeing this with the Supreme Court, is that the older guard is still there. And so these are the people who still have racism in their hearts. These are the people who are still prejudiced. And these are still the people who don't want to allow those old ways to die. And so that's why Trump was successful with raising up these people to support him, because you had so many people, like I think you all have said, that did not allow those feelings to die. They still had those feelings. So all Trump did was came in and tapped into those feelings that those people still had of supremacists, attitude of hating other races, people of color, not feeling that women are deserving to be at certain levels in certain companies and businesses. And so all he did was tap into that and brought those people to life again and released that spirit back over us. But these are the people who are in charge, even in the church. As I said, the Ku Klux Klans are the people who are in the church, but out here killing folks, okay? Making sure that Black people are beheaded, are lynched, hung from trees, making sure Black people are burned, any kind of heinous act that could happen to demonstrate to Black people how we think of you, that's what they were doing. And so these are the same people that were in the church. And so you have some of them who I guess were the descendants of some of these people who received some of that same thinking that are in Congress, that are in charge of certain denominations, that are in leadership positions today. And so the old guard is still in charge in many places. When you talk about your school districts, when you talk about your Fortune 500 companies, when you talk about your governmental agencies, when you talk about, like I said, the church, the denominations, when you talk about the Senate, the House, when you look at the pictures of the senators, you have a few young folks, but you see a whole bunch of people over the age of 70, maybe 75. And so when you talk about that, there is no new thought. There is no new ways of thinking about doing anything there with those people. And so these are the same people who are influencers in the church, the same people who are leading denominations, the same people who have run those young people that you talked about out, that were out protesting. They the same people that have run those young people out of the church and made them not want to be a part of the church. And so, when you look at it, you got to be willing to speak up for your friend. Those young people will speak up for their friend. But will people in our age group speak up? A lot of times they won't. They're like, I can't afford to lose my job, honey. I can't afford to lose my house. And I'm about to be retired and get my benefits, so I can't lose that. And so that's where a lot of people are. But these young people are like, no, I'm speaking up for my friend. And so whatever happens, happens, because they change jobs every month anyway. So, they don't have a problem speaking up for their friend. And so when we look at it, once again, this racism that we see, this supremacy that we see in the church, this attitude of I'm above you and you have to do what I say. And oftentimes it is subtle. It's very subtle, but you got to be keen enough to be able to recognize it when you see it. And you got to be willing to say something when you see it, and not sit on it, because if you sit on it, they're going to do it to the next person. And then they're going to do it to 3 more people after that. And so they're going to continue to do it until somebody lets them know this is unacceptable. And so this type of activity in the church, how has it impacted your relationship with God? Because some people really wonder, God, are your leaders like this? These people are the ones that say they represent you. These people are the ones that say they're being used by you. These people are the ones that say that they have been gifted, they have been sent by you. And so that impacts people's relationship with God and their belief. So that's
Bishop,
why we have so many young people. Okay, hold on for 1 second. That's why we have so many people, young people, who are practicing other things besides Christianity. Go ahead.
well, I wanted to go back a little bit what you just had made that statement about how many people friends will speak up for them and how things are happening. I have a lot of positive relationships with white people. You understand? I have, some of my nieces and them are white and Spanish. We have the whole rainbow in our family, But I noticed during this time of racism, this racist act, this racist attention that's going on in America today, a lot of people relationships that a lot of people who have relationships with that are of another race, those relationships are breaking. They are dying because people are unsure how to treat each other now. Because the love that I have for you, that I called you my sister, or I called you my brother, or I called you whatever, those relationships are being challenged because do you feel that way about me? Like, the next person feel that way about me, or should we be friends, or am I going to get killed for being with a white person? You understand? Or hang with a white person? A black person. This is what maybe your white friends are saying. Would I get ridiculed? Would people, burn my house down? Whatever the thought process is back then, because we're taking this all the way back to where our grandmothers, and they was out in the cotton field, or you got caught saying, talking to a black person as a white person, you just don't do that. So how many of those memories that's being brought up, how many of those things that we are trying to, kill, that is coming back, so now we have to rethink that.
A lot of those relationships are surface level relationships.
Yeah.
And my wife and I was telling her, I said, I've seen on Facebook how many people have broken up or are no longer friends with some of their white, I would say associates, because you knew them, but you didn't know them.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you knew them on a surface level, but you never really asked them, what do you think about some of this stuff that Trump says? What do you think about people feeling like they're supreme and they're better than other people. What do you
Absolutely.
think about? And so when you really get into those kind of conversations, those are the kind of conversations we have to have. When you get into those kind of conversations, you really get to know who people are. And some people are going to find out they do not like some of the friends that they've had for years. Because when you really start to talk, some of that stuff that they heard from their grandfathers, their
Absolutely.
great
Absolutely.
grandfathers, some of that stuff is going to come out. And that's what
Absolutely.
they believe because that's what they've always known. And they still in their hearts really do believe that, but they just don't talk about it.
And that's why it's so hard for that person and you to have that conversation. Now it's so hard for y'all to pick up the phone and call each other all the time. We used to talk on the phone with each other all the time. And now all of a sudden, like, what should I say? You understand? Or am I going to get questioned, you know, about who I really am, you know, stuff like that. And it brings that tension, you know, in that relationship where, okay, well, now we don't need to be cool. We don't need to be friends. You understand? But like, you know, it's so disheartening. It's really so disheartening because I have family members and nieces and nephews and great nephews of, you know, all kind of race and culture. You know, like, what do you do? Like, I have a beautiful nephew. His father's white. His mother's Hispanic. And, you know, we have a great relationship. You know, it's just like so hard. Like, what do you do with all this stuff that is going on that is really toxic to our United States of America for what it is? You understand? Are we still the melting pot?
We are the melting pot, but at some point, you know, you've got to deal with all of the ingredients that are in the pot. And so that's just real. That's keeping it 100. And so, Reverend Candy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that I like to see us as a tossed salad, for you
Okay.
know, where we all keep our identities, but we're
Yes.
all in the pot. We're
Yeah.
all in the salad together, and we rub up on each other. But we need something to make this salad taste good. You need to add an ingredient, like salad dressing. Some people put
That be
different kind of.
love.
That would be
Might we add some
love. Yes, that's what it would be.
love?
That's what it would be.
It might be some understanding.
That's what it would be. That's what it would be. You have to add to us
Yes.
something. Otherwise, we will, the things that we have learned, been socialized with, that we have been taught, that we have decided that we want it a certain way because of who we are, because of our own ego needs, whatever the case might be. Um, when I would think at this juncture in time, when things are the way they are in the world and also in the United States, with a pandemic upon us, with all the politicking that's happening, spiritual leaders and people of faith and people of goodwill, it's important for us to not only interrogate ourselves about what are we doing to make things better and what am I doing that's causing more division. We need to do those two things, but we also need to reach out to others who are different than ourselves
Yes.
and have those conversations. And I agree with both of you in terms of um, mixed race relationships feeling some strain. I would say that this is an opportunity for those relationships, if you truly love each other, that you reach over. Love jumps over
Yeah.
barriers.
Yes.
Uh, and I think we should jump over barriers to get and not lose relationships. But that
Yeah.
takes courage, that takes openness, that
Yeah.
takes a willingness, that takes some of us, being willing to hear things that we may not be ready to hear.
Yes.
That takes being willing to say some of the things that might actually be something that someone doesn't want to hear, but
Yeah.
it's important for them to hear it from you.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful point because like I said, most of the people I've seen, they tend to say that, they have to cut that person off. And so you don't want to do that. You want to see how you can work through and talk through those things. Because if you talk through that with that person might be able to help the next person, and so that's how we begin. You got to start with one and then move to the next and move to the next and move to the next. I think that's very important. um when I look at some of the things that we go through in the church, as people try to be the community that they know that God would have us to be, I think it's important that we bring our authenticity to the church. And so I think African Americans for so long have been oppressed. They have been disenfranchised. They have been, put down, talked about, left out, thrown out, until we have now developed what I heard another preacher call as internalized oppression. And so we have to deal with our own internalized oppression. And so that, I believe, may make us not speak up and speak out. And unfortunately, people don't like for you to rock what they think is a peaceful place. And so some of the white folks in the church, when they let black folks start coming in, they don't want the black folks to start rocking, the situation. Don't rock the boat because, we've been happy here 50 years. And now that we letting y'all in, don't start rocking the boat. Well, if things are not right, and if we cannot show love to one another, show peace to one another, and accept all of the gifts that are in the house, and elevate those who deserve to be elevated. And, one of the problems I see in white, predominantly white denominations, is that they have a problem with being under the authority or leadership of a black person. Now, all day long, the black person can be under the white person, but when yet that black person is allowed or supposed to be allowed to ascend, then that's where the problem comes in. Well, why is that a problem if you don't have any issues? So that automatically should be a red flag that there's some issues. If people don't want to sit under or serve under someone who is African American, that has the gifts, that has the experience, that has the training, has the education, has the Spirit of God upon them, has the anointing, and God has sanctioned what they're doing. Why is there a problem? And so, we have to really begin to look at those types of things and speak out. And other black folks can't just sit around and not say anything, and I like to say it takes everybody. It takes everybody, because I can't just be noisy by myself. Y'all gonna leave me out there by myself? No, somebody else needs to say something, And so I've been in places where I kind of raise the roof and then look around, ain't nobody else there to say nothing. I'm like, oh Lord, ain't nothing gonna change in here. Ain't nothing gonna change.
You be like, are you with me? And everybody
Right.
gone. But when you're talking by yourself with everybody, that's a different story. When you go in front of the person that can make changes, they don't show up.
Well, and that's something I think we could also teach folk.
Yeah.
We can teach how to speak up. We can teach how to look inside. We can begin help people, because some people don't even know how to be self-reflective. They don't know how to examine themselves to even understand what's going on. And so that kind of thing can be taught to people so they can learn and then be empowered for themselves versus waiting for somebody else to do it. But I think we have to start. That would be a good place to start with some people, is learning and teaching how to be self-reflective, how to examine yourself, and to look at your core beliefs, to look at, why am I treating my sister out there who is raising the roof? Why am I silent?
Yes.
And so if it's and if the answer comes back to you, well, but she's doing it. Well, what stops you from being supportive of your sister or your brother? There is something there. And that thing, you have to, in order for you to be someone who can stand up and to be authentic, you have to address that thing. And it's not bad to look at it, but it's bad to not look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the point of silence. Silence is supporting the supremacist that is
Yes,
oppressing your sister or your brother.
yes,
And so, you cannot be silent, especially in the church, because, uh, the church is where we want everybody to be in community. We want the power of love to prevail, and we want the people to be able to use their gifts and use what God has given them to be a blessing to the body. And so, sometimes people are just totally blocked. They don't allow you to do anything. Don't allow you to use your gifts. You got to sit down, but we'll take your money. And so, uh, we've got to stop continuing to be, we got to no longer continue to support those places and those institutions. Well, I do have one last question we want to ask is, anybody think Jesus was racist? What y'all think?
okay, I'll step out there.
Okay.
All right. I think Jesus had a lot to learn.
Okay. All right. Bring it,
Uh-huh.
Richard.
Yeah, I think that Jesus, uh, he was someone that had to be taught. He was taught by Jewish teachers and Essenes, so he had things to learn. And some of the things he learned was to be opposite of others,
Mm-hmm.
because that was the way it was written in the law. You don't associate with certain people, you don't associate with women a certain way, so that was. But then when he became an adult, and as he began to be recruiting his disciples, um, I think Jesus continued his learning. And so we see in the scriptures in different places where he started confronting those same kinds of rules and laws. When he would be seen talking to the woman at the well,
Mm-hmm.
or when he would say, you who have are without sin, cast the first stone against the woman who had many husbands. So he began pushing back, but that's because he evolved. He was always evolving. And then I think his disciples saw that he was always evolving.
Yes.
And then his disciples had to learn, because
Yeah.
they were in the same suit. They had to evolve as well. So it's, everybody has a starting place, including Jesus. So my answer is yes, and he evolved.
Yes, and I think that's a great answer because people oftentimes don't really look at persons from the Bible and their history and how they evolve. I taught Pauline epistles, I think maybe 3 sessions at Ashland Theological Seminary, and one of the things I had to tell people is Paul had to evolve. Y'all are reading, talking about y'all love Paul's epistles and all this. Paul didn't start here. Paul, was against the people. We do know that. But Paul also had to gradually grow into the ministry that God had given him. And we know that Jesus grew into the ministry God gave him. One of the places that always stuck out for me was, and I got this from the good nuns when I took class at the Catholic seminary one year, or Dayton. And the Catholics were in the class. This was their class. They allowed me to come in, I guess, as a seminarian. Was when the woman, I think she had a son, and so she asked Jesus for assistance, and Jesus initially told her no. And she said, "Well, wouldn't you at least give a dog the crumbs under the table?" And so at that point, that seemed to be a turning point for Jesus in his ministry. And so everybody has to evolve and change and grow into the ministry, I believe. Even though Jesus was divine, Jesus was God's son, we totally believe that. But sometimes you have to grow into what God has placed in your hands. And so I think that that's a great answer, the way you frame that, because Jesus did have some learning to do in his humanity. Now, he was fully divine, but he had some humanity stuff he had to get. And so I believe that's we witness that in the readings that we read in scripture. Any other thoughts from Minister Cat, Deacon Kim? Deacon Kim, she's not gonna touch that one.
I agree with y'all so much because I'm in seminary and we graduating soon, and we read a whole lot of stuff about that, and in that quote unquote this is a man's world kind of thing. Jesus was still learning as a little boy coming up and into that. And when you are, like you said, Minister Candy Holmes, when you are born and raised in a household where this is what you saw and this is what you did and this is what everybody did and this is what, like hunting, 4 generations of men went out, taught the kids how to shoot and all that stuff like that. You're gonna pick up those ways until you start seeing something that's a little bit different when you escape that area or get out from underneath those individuals and see something different. So yes, Jesus totally evolved and was learning as Jesus went. But yes, I do believe that there was some, prejudice there, or, how you say some racism there, because that's what Jesus was taught and was up around, especially when it comes to women. So, I mean, yeah, I love the way y'all put that. If somebody hearing that out there today, they're like, oh, they said that about Jesus? Oh, Lord. You understand? You have them, them so-called too good Christians, oh God, like, don't supposed to drop the Bible. Don't supposed to hit the floor. You don't supposed to, listen, it's what it is, you guys. You have to read it and get to when you read, you gotta get your understanding. You can't believe what you heard. You got to read the word for yourself and you got to get the understanding. And I truly believe that, because with a lot of embedded theology that I have learned, being in seminary had taught me different. And it gave me a different 4D lens for me to look at the whole picture and not just have tunnel vision and believe what people tell me to. So if I believe what's preached across the pulpit and I don't look in my Bible and figure it out and find out what happened during that time and who was God talking to, or who were the people in the Bible talking to, I wouldn't know either. I would think like y'all too. So I'm glad I have found my way and I'm steady learning. And I just encourage you all to do the same too. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But ladies, y'all said that very well. Very well done. Very well said. Appreciate that.
All right, so we have had a wonderful discussion on tonight about racism in the church. We want to give a special thank you to the Reverend Candy Holmes, who has joined us on tonight, gave us a wonderful dialogue. We so appreciate you and we appreciate your gifts. And thank you, as always, to the ELC leadership. I want to say to those who have experienced racism in the church and you've allowed that to impact your relationship with the church, we want to encourage you to not allow that to take you off of your walk with God, not allow that to discourage you from every church. Just know that some churches do have challenges, but you may be sent to speak out in love, and speak out hoping that change will come so that others who may follow you may experience the change that you helped to bring in that church. And maybe even those who are there can experience the change with you and support you as you all together work on changing racism in the church. All right. Once again, we love you. We thank you so much for always joining us on Wednesday nights. And we're praying for you. Please do pray for us. Know that we need to continue to pray for our country, continue to pray for those who are in leadership in our country, and continue to pray for all of God's people. And once again, follow us at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral on Facebook and on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at Empower Cathedral. Follow us on Twitter at Empower Cathedral, and our website, empowermentliberationcathedral.org. Have a wonderful, blessed night.